Okay, cool. So we're live. Thank you so much, Clyde and Bruce, for being here today. How are you both doing?
I'm good.
All right.
Great.
I didn't know Bruce had long hair.
I haven't cut it since
Did
the
you?
year before the pandemic.
Well, you always see Bruce with his hair tied back, I think, because it always looks short. But that looks great. I wish mine was still long. I miss those days.
Did you guys? Did you guys not? Have you never done a video call or anything?
Yes, we did. Well, I think that was audio, but I've seen his photo on LinkedIn, and I feel like maybe we didn't have video that time.
I don't think so.
Cool.
I don't do video very often. I've been trying to get over that reluctance.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's really good to have you both here. I don't know if we want to give like a super quick 2-word kind of intro. Bruce, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm BruceTheGoose. I'm a crypto artist full-time for a little over a year. And I'm also the founder of the Nifty Pride Foundation and NFT Hub.
Nice. Clyde?
Okay, Clyde Smith, more widely known as Flux Research on Twitter in particular. I am an artist, but I haven't done a lot of NFT art. I launched Cryptoart last spring as a directory of crypto artists, and I'm now doing a lot of business writing about NFTs, mostly for the Defiant and for my newsletter, NFT Entrepreneur.
Super. Good to have you both. Actually, I wanted to start exactly like talking about, I guess, the time when you both kind of started getting into NFTs. And maybe, Clyde, I'll start from you. Like, how did Cryptoart.net come about, and what has been the developments since it started?
Okay. Let's see. Well, I didn't get into Cryptoart until like 2019. So I know Bruce will have a little more history for us, but I basically discovered it through Twitter, started getting to know the community, was really, I felt welcomed in a way that I hadn't by many online communities over the years. And so when the pandemic hit, I was thinking I could do a lot more art because I started making digital art to get into the scene. But I also have a history of doing websites, web directories, blogging, stuff you can do yourself pretty easily. And thought, a directory of crypto artists would be cool. I asked a lot of the folks I knew about it. They said, yeah, sounds like a good idea. So I launched that in May. And basically, the core of the site remains the directory of artists. Each artist gets their own page. They edit it. There's like different options for just about any link to where you sell your crypto art, where you sell your merch, your website, your social media presence, plus a small gallery and a video. If you have like a YouTube or Vimeo video, you can add it to the site. The artists set that up themselves and they maintain their pages. I do some other content, partly for educational purposes and to help with bringing people to the site. We've also launched NFT art releases, so each member can post a piece of art that's available for sale each day. It goes out in a Twitter feed, and then it gets retweeted by Cryptoart.net and by Flux Research. And at this point, the NFT boom brought so many people in that now, like, Cryptoart.net has over 3,000 followers. I have over 4,000. I know a lot of people experience this kind of daily growth they hadn't seen for the years before that. And so that's benefiting the artists who decide to post there. And basically, it's about, promoting artists. I'm really trying to find ways now to get people to browse the directory listings more. That seems to me the strongest part of the site. I did go through this period where I was considering passing the site on to someone else, because when I'm doing recruiting and that kind of thing, it's very time consuming. But I'm starting to realize that if I just maintain it, support the folks joining, and focus very simply, on the core of the site, I can keep doing it. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to continue with a focus on the directory.
And talking about directory, Bruce was telling me just before we were live that you were one of the first artists on there, right, Bruce?
Yeah, I think I was the 14th, right? Because I missed the cutoff for Baker's Dozen, and then somebody left or something.
Yeah, we lost a member, and then that bumped you up to the first 13 members.
And how did you get into NFTs, Bruce?
I couldn't. Oh, how to get in? Oh man, that's a long story. To make it short, I had zero interest in crypto, and then I was looking into doing drop shipping and other e-commerce type things, and just had been a huge hassle with banks and credit card processing companies because I was a first-time business owner. I had no sales history. It's like, well, I can't take a check for something online. Nobody's gonna mail me a check to order something from my website. Like if I can't take a credit card, I can't sell anything. So I was looking into Bitcoin. And going down that rabbit hole in general, I stumbled onto the Engine Coin ICO announcement. And I'm a lifetime gamer, so I'm familiar with Engine as a game studio. And was like, what does Engine want with cryptocurrencies? And then was reading about that and their concept for their multiverse program with interoperable video games, and everything's actually owned as NFTs. And it was like, this changes everything ever. Then from there, I found my way onto Cent, and the community around Cryptoart is some of the most supportive and welcoming people I've ever met on the internet. So it was it just kind of consumed my life at that point. There's nothing I'd rather do than spend my day full of art and innovation.
And when was that?
Towards the end of last year. Had to been November, December, because it was right before the pandemic hit.
Okay, great. And I guess, in terms of what is happening lately within Cryptoart, and I guess the boom that has been the last couple of months, what are both of your perspectives on this, and how do you see the NFTs kind of the big boom continuing longer term? Do you think it's a boom that will end, or is it something to stay and go more mainstream? Clyde, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, while we're talking, both of us brought up community and the Cryptoart community. And I realized that one of the things that happened with the boom was so many people came in, and there was so much media coverage, a certain amount of which clearly didn't get what was going on, and all these celebs. And the awareness of the community that existed before all this didn't really reach a lot of the new people coming in. So once things got big, there was a lot of criticism as well. And it seemed like a lot of those folks weren't aware that there was this community of artists. There was a wide range of art. I mean, to me, there may be certain kinds of art that get the most attention at certain times, and certain approaches that are more popular. And the boom brought in even more 3D artists and people out of effects and motion graphics, which has been great. It gave them a market they didn't have. But what's happened is the way it got presented to the public, a lot of people missed out on that core community. And I think a lot of people still don't realize it even exists. So that's one of the big things that struck me about that, about the effects of that period. It's like it distorted reality for a lot of people and then imposed, to some degree, a new reality on the situation.
It's like we're the indigenous people getting invaded by the white man.
I don't want to go that far. I haven't gotten any blankets with polio delivered to my house. You know what I'm saying? But it's definitely, there was an established culture, and then what did feel like an invasive moment occurring. Um, but I think beyond that, the boom felt like it also came too early. You know, the tech's still developing. It's not that user friendly. A lot of the platforms that are the most user friendly are the least decentralized and the least designed to give people NFTs that will last for the long term, that can be traded in secondary markets and that kind of thing. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on because the tech wasn't quite ready. But I think beyond that, it's actually good. I mean, it's hard to mainstream this stuff. That's what that's what a lot of us want to see happen in some form or another. And that is happening now. And this first boom is receding. There's some dropping prices, particularly at the high end. We're seeing some dropping prices on secondary markets, like for a lot of the big music releases. Folks have noted that on Twitter. And there's a little pullback. At the same time, you can see a lot more investors coming in. Mark Cuban, Ashton Kutcher, a lot of those folks are now all in. You see their names popping up on a lot of different startups being funded by them. They're doing an event now that's a little bit like Shark Tank. So there's going to continue to be headlines, new people coming in hoping to make money. And so it looks like the bubble isn't going to really happen. We didn't get to bubble territory, in my opinion. But we're going to continue in growth mode and with a lot of stuff happening. So we'll see what happens.
What are your thoughts on this, Bruce?
I think in the long term, it's really good because it's bringing awareness to like the space in general and the core fundamentals behind decentralizing stuff and like the issues that music artists and visual artists and even performance artists and stuff like that face in the traditional markets. In the short term, I think there's a lot of cash grab nonsense going on, but I think just as fast as those people are coming in and making some money, they're going to get right back out. So while it's frustrating right now, I think overall it's good.
And you touched before, Clyde, on the user kind of interfaces of the platforms, and a lot of the platforms not being ready. Can you expand on that? What do you mean about platforms not being ready? And just expand on that.
Well, I think there was a problem already around customer support and documentation. Like when I was checking out platforms last year, total newbie to the platforms, as an artist trying to come on board and mint stuff, every platform I'd go to, they'd have all this information. A lot of them have good information available that's pretty clear, but there would always be these gaps. And then you start asking, trying to get customer support, and generally it was the community answering most of the questions. And you could see already that platforms were having trouble keeping up with the user base they had. For example, curation platforms taking really long time to get back to artists. So that stuff was already an issue. The boom forced more attention to that. And there was also a mini boom back in the fall. But that'll force platforms to start doing that. But a lot of times it's like the last thing. It seems the least important. The focus is on product. I understand that, but at that level, if somebody comes in not knowing what's going on, if they're not connected to the community on Twitter or to specific Discord groups, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. I've already made mistakes. I'm getting ready to burn my first NFTs because of stuff that I didn't understand that seems obvious now, but wasn't really stated clearly when I made my first decisions. So I think that's one, area where the support for the existing tech wasn't ready.
wasn't and isn't, or wasn't and is?
They're not there yet. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
the rate of growth has been insane. Like,
yeah,
I think I probably got on Rarible when there was like 100 of us minting trash cans and stuff and laughing about it. Now I think they have 100,000 followers on Twitter. Like, as far as they've probably hired some people since, but like this time last year, Rarible was 2 people like running the show, and like it's just things have grown insanely fast. I know OpenSea recently started hiring more people because that was a really small team too, and I know Super Rare was like 5 or 6 people. I don't know if they've expanded, but there's everybody and their brothers looking for a blockchain developer right now because like everybody has ideas and everybody wants to do cool NFT stuff. Should have learned coding. I was supposed to go to school for it last year, and then I got sidetracked being too busy in NFT land, and was like, yeah, I'm not gonna make it. Should have went. Could be writing smart contracts and getting rich.
But actually, talking about what you've built in NFT land, you've built NFT Hub and Nifty Pride, right? Do you want to quickly talk about the two?
Yeah, so Nifty Pride came, well, I guess technically NFT Hub came first because originally it was going to be a minting platform, but then I can't write a smart contract, so I got stuck there. And then last summer, when they did Global Pride Weekend, and like there was a 24-hour live stream of like a whole bunch of different cities and stuff. About a week before Pride Weekend, I grabbed a Pride flag wearable for CryptoVoxels off somebody on OpenSea, and they DM me on Discord to say thanks. And I was like, hey, you think anybody would want to do a Pride parade in CryptoVoxels? Like, that might be cool since the world's closed. And then that spun up into like a rainbow whirlwind all week long of planning and trying to organize it. And the whole Bronx district of CryptoVoxels ended up decorated in rainbows. Like, I think we had like 120 or something people come out. We showcased like a couple dozen artists. We had live music from Dow Records. And it was really cool. And after that, it seemed like a disservice to be like, all right, pack it up, see you next year. So we turned it into a more permanent initiative to support LGBTQ plus artists in the NFT space. And we have a permanent gallery in CryptoVoxels. We have land in the sandbox that we haven't used yet. And eventually we'll be getting other stuff, but it's all run on donations by me right now. So, well, run by me and run on donations. So it's with NFT Hub being prevalent at the moment, it's been a little quiet at Nifty Pride. But I've been reaching out to a few people to try and get somebody to like take the reins. And NFT Hub is essentially the simplest way I've described it is it's the product hunt of NFTs. You're doing an NFT project, throw them in the public directory. There's a social network feature with a forum, and then there's also like custom social feeds that you can make. They're either public or private, so like you could set up a single one for the whole site where it works a lot like Twitter, or you could set up a private one that's just for like the people you want in it, or people have to apply to it. There's a ton of features really, but basically it was intended to streamline the whole NFT navigation thing, and then the whole world decided to take notice all at once, and I wasn't ready.
So basically, you were looking to build a hub that could host all NFTs from all different platforms, right?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily that we're going to host the NFTs themselves, but more so like be a blockchain agnostic resource portal of like, here's all the marketplaces and what blockchains they're on and what advantages they have, and here's all the collectibles projects, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I thought it was, or seemed really necessary in my opinion. Like, I've been in every nook and cranny in this rabbit hole, and like there's so much cool stuff out there that people just don't realize exists because it doesn't have the marketing or the SEO or whatever. And I have a working knowledge of that, so I figured why not slap it together, make a unified directory for all the stuff.
That's really interesting, and also it's something that I think like it's so needed as well now that the space is so big.
I needed it 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. Something that I find like a lot of artists that are artists or collectors as well. It's like, I can't seem to navigate through all of these platforms. I can't seem to, like, it's so difficult to find stuff that I'm actually interested, let's say generative art or, collectibles or one-on-ones. So to have like a marketplace or even a hub, like something that you built to encompass all of that is huge. It's such a useful resource.
Yeah, I thought so. It's basically meant to be like a central landing pad. Like one of the ideas is to do like an educational series of like tutorials about like how to set up your wallet, how to get on OpenSea and mint there, how to like all this other stuff, because there's dozens now of platforms that you can mint on, and like probably close to a dozen different blockchains that have NFT functionality now. So like learning all that stuff is a huge learning curve, especially for people that are coming in because of the NFT boom and aren't familiar with crypto and blockchain. Which like I went through the same thing last year, early year before, like had zero crypto knowledge, and it was definitely a journey to learn all the security and stuff like that before I even started minting.
Absolutely. For me too, I have to agree with that, and I think it's definitely useful. I mean, Clyde, you were saying something similar as well, that there's a lack of kind of resources for people coming into the space, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are resources, and there are people that have actually done some nice introductory guides and that kind of thing. But still, there's like this. The learning curve is substantial. So having projects like NFT Hub, bringing that stuff together, creating new resources, but like I assume also linking out to resources that exist. I think that's really important right now to make it easier to bring people in.
Absolutely. And what about your project with NFT Entrepreneur? What's happening there?
Okay, that this year I have a background in business writing. I wrote about the music industry for many years. I got in around 2004, 2005. There was the trade blogging became a thing. Blogging had been personal or kind of opinion column type stuff. But a lot of business writers started launching their own trade blogs, and I got into that. Actually, I was writing about hip hop and did that for a few years. Had the first hip hop business blog that was just dedicated to the business side. Then I wrote for hypebot.com, which is a music industry site, and went through a period of not doing any business writing, and then getting into this. The business part is so interesting and so active, and I decided this year to start focusing more on writing about that. Partly I don't like writing about art because at some point that gets into your taste and your opinion about people's work, and everybody looks at things so differently. I don't really feel like focusing on that. But also there's a big opportunity right now. So I have done a few pieces for the Defiant. That seems to be working well. I want to keep doing that. And then NFT Entrepreneur is a newsletter focused on business news. I'm still figuring out really exactly how that's going to work. But what I do is I just did my third funding report. I basically gather all the news about all the funding of NFT startups I can find and have links out to the sources and quotes. I've done a piece on NFT stocks because they went nuts in March. So that was really interesting. And doing other pieces that seem important to the time that aren't about breaking news, but are about looking at a lot of different sources and bringing things together.
And what do you both think about, there's obviously been a bit of I guess, decline in, NFT sales, or there's kind of, a slowing down of the market. What is your take on that?
I mean, I think a lot of it was the like the hype with the pixel art stuff, which I don't really understand that much. Like I get the hype behind CryptoPunks, and I kick myself every day for not buying one for $400 last summer. Consciously made the decision, no, $400 is way too much for some pixel art. Like, oh, cool. Can't get one for under 40 grand now.
I think it's what a lot of people are thinking, right? All over Twitter is people saying, "Why didn't I buy a CryptoPunk?"
Right? Like, should have bought a CryptoPunk.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I think the boom threw pricing off too. Like when you see a lot of the folks coming in, say a lot of folks coming in on Foundation, because that seems to be the big onboarding platform of the moment. Um, there's some very talented artists coming on there, and they're pricing their work quite high in some cases, and they have absolutely no reputation in the space. Nobody knows who they are, and they may have worked on, in some cases, on some big movies. They may have worked for major clients for years, but part of why Beeple pulled off what he did, there were a lot of forces at play for that, but he was also posting online for years. He had a reputation. And a lot of people in crypto art that were getting big sales coming into the boom, before the boom, were also very well known. They were in the space all the time. They put out a lot of art. They had built up these, brands. Basically, they'd built up strong personal brands. So I think there's a lot going on. There's kind of a confusion about pricing right now. And then also, there are people that were able to succeed when there was less noise, but now they're kind of getting crowded out a bit by everything that's going on now. So it's kind of hard to read what's happening with some of that.
What's your take, Bruce?
I think a lot of it comes down to marketing, as far as people getting crowded out. Like, I know personally, like I think I've sold one NFT in the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it's been. But like, I don't like to market myself. Like, I don't want to be a businessman. Like, I just want to make art. It's like there's
Yeah.
a lot of noise going on, and a lot of people are coming in with money in mind and like have history or experience with marketing, so they know how to do it. And like, it's not my bag. But again, I think overall, in the long term, it's good for the space. Like, there's a lot of people coming in right now, and a lot of really talented artists are coming in. But at the same time, there's a lot of people flying under the radar. Like, as one example, Champion, the athletics wear brand, like they put out a couple NFTs recently, and like they didn't have big hype from OpenSea or whatever. They just kind of did it on their own quietly. I ended up grabbing a couple of them just because like they were ridiculously low price, and then they burned like 90% of the ones that were unsold. So it's like, oh, let me grab a couple more of these. So when people realize that there's a 1 of 3 Champion hoodie NFT, I have 2 of them, not 1.
No, but actually that's a really good point, and it's something that I also hear a lot. It's like, I want to do art, I don't want to market myself. So like, I guess my question is, what do you think is like needed to bridge that gap? So you want to do art, there's obviously like an opportunity, or well, not an opportunity, but I guess a need to actually like do the marketing part, because the space is so big now that you have to make some noise to be seen in some way or form. So what do you think is like the bridge for that?
I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened already. Like, that we don't have NFT marketing agencies. That's just literally what they do. Like, give us 10% and we'll sell your NFTs. Like, I'd happily give over 10% if somebody's going to get my stuff sold. Like,
even if you have to you already have to like split it with the platform, you'd be happy to do that?
yeah, that's still less than traditional gallery fees, right? It's like 40-50% most places. Like, I just kick my price up a little bit, and if it gets sold, it gets sold.
Well, there's a reason people aren't doing that. Like you just said it, galleries make more money because they provide a function that's very particular to the artists they work with and the market they deal with. Now, there are lots, I recognize there are a lot of issues with galleries, but if you want somebody else to do your business, you either have to pay them up front or you have to give them a big chunk of the business. And this is something we saw in the music industry during the time I was really focused on it. That's when the DIY already existed, right, back in the 20th century. But the internet pushed it to a new level. Suddenly you could, chart and make things happen without a record label. But to do that, you had to do a lot of work. So you saw a lot of people coming in and going, oh, I don't want to be a business person. I just want to make music.
Mm.
And that's cool, but you can't expect the business to happen on its own. And at the end of the day, a lot of people just want a record label. We don't have that, and Bruce is cracking me up here. He should really do a show like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a podcast last year. It was supposed to be weekly, and then it turned into 10 episodes over the course of a year. There's just so much going on all the time. But I just actually recently put up the first episode of season 2 a couple days ago.
Oh, cool.
So NFT time.
You should have marketed it better. I didn't hear about it.
A podcast about what?
It's about all the NFT things, really. Last year I had people on like micro sponsors and DAO Records and Mutant Monsters, a few other people in the space. And then this last episode was with BruceTheGoose. It looks really cool. I have a link for it. It's called it's NFT time with BruceTheGoose.
NFT time.
Yeah, link it so I can also link it underneath the live. Sorry, Clyde, you were saying about I
No, go ahead.
No,
we haven't heard
I
from you.
definitely
You don't share your
no, I definitely agree. You know, I think there's a it's a tough one. I think I was discussing this yesterday in a Clubhouse talk as well around like, you know, curation and galleries and all of that. And I think, you know, there's a fine line between reverting back to kind of traditional art models, which a lot of artists and a lot of people in the space want to move away from. But also there's obviously like a need for storytelling, right, in the space, and to kind of, you know, talking about art, which will also bridge the gap between, you know, artists not being known and getting to be known, or, you know, getting awareness in the space, but also about simply like actually telling stories, because at the end of the day, like everybody, you know, most artists have a story behind what they're creating and have a story to tell and actually want to tell that story, but they just either don't have the time, or like Bruce said before, like, I just want to do art, you know, I don't want to think about marketing myself. And I think it's like, you know, it's a much wider piece, and there's definitely much more to chat about, but it's potentially something that also plays, where also like platform play an important role, right, in this, like in allowing even like connections between artists and, let's say, you know, marketing advocates or curators, or, you know, specific kind of like crypto NFT media, right? I guess that's my take on it, and something that I think it's probably going to you know, expand or increase in the space. There's definitely a need for it.
Yeah, you know, I think the platforms are actually, you know, there's a limit to what they can do. Like I cut them much more slack on those kind of issues than on customer support issues. Because I feel like that's a core part of their business. But you see, like, there's a lot, you know, Super Rare does their editorial stuff, Known Origin does their blog. They might find ways to make that stuff more visible beyond their platform. Or, I don't know, there are things they could do, but I think what's going to happen is artists have to either decide that they're going to do the marketing themselves, pay somebody, or wait until more infrastructure emerges. Now, I have seen people, you know, you've seen collectives and groups of artists working together, and people doing shows in Decentraland and CryptoVoxel and so forth. I think those are great marketing methods.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something that artists do seem inspired to do, because they're working with other artists, they're supporting each other, they're showing their art in a, you know, virtual gallery setting. So maybe when people say I need to do more marketing, they should look for the things that feel good and extend what they're already doing, and then start finding the things kind of at the edge of what feels good and start pushing on those a little bit. That would be one thing. I think we may, like, okay, since I'm doing business writing, I've found because of my LinkedIn profile, I'm starting to get a lot of contact from publicists and getting some press releases, stuff that I then see in the media. So I'm starting to see who's pushing their things from these kind of traditional channels. And it's weird. It's kind of an odd mix of people doing that. I'm seeing more ads on Twitter for art, specific art things. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to who has the money to hire a publicist, who has the money to buy ads. Ads are a little cheaper. You can target them. But, a lot of artists don't have that kind of money. And the other option is putting in a lot of work. And there's really no way around that. We may eventually have things closer to record labels where the record label does the marketing. I guess the NFT label could do the marketing, but you give up a lot when you do that because you give up control and money, a bigger percentage, and you're probably going to want to give up. So it's difficult. There's nothing easy about that.
I guess a question for you both. Maybe Bruce, I'll ask you. Do you think there's a difference between NFT and crypto art? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, I think so in a way. Like, 'cause NFTs can really be anything as far as non-fungibles. Like video game items are NFTs. The NBA Top Shots are NFTs. Like music, videos, ebooks could be NFTs. Which I'm surprised we haven't seen, honestly. Like I think, and then there's also like the crypto art, and then there's like the original wave of NFT artists that were like they're crypto artists. But so like there was that distinction last year sometime too, where like crypto art is basically the Bitcoin themed stuff or like the Ethereum themed stuff, and NFT art was more so just like art as NFTs. But now that it's all blown up exponentially, I think there's a lot of like just people making stuff to be quote unquote collectible, less than it is actually art. But I don't really want to say anybody's art isn't art because I'm like one of the first people to join the trash art movement. So I've tokenized trash cans and sold them. So can't tell anyone tell anyone their art isn't art, but I think a lot of it is more of trying to capitalize on the collectibles value.
Well, the trash art movement is basically a movement that was born and bred in this land, right, in NFT land. So it's part of the history, basically.
Yeah, and it's sad to think that like all these people coming into it now like aren't going to understand the like our references. It's like ancient history now. A year later, the history and culture that we have that existed before the mainstream took notice to NFTs like is always going to be deep seated with all of us. But like other people are going to see tokenized trash cans and be like, "What the hell is this trash can? Is this art?"
So talk a little bit about the trash art movement because I'd love to hear about it.
So the trash art movement was started originally by Rob Ness. So what happened was Jim, the founder of Avastars and a couple other things, tweeted, I want to say it was a mint-based screenshot, something, I don't know, it was just some like weird glitch effect stuff, and he tweeted about it. He was like, just so you know, like to a PSA for the platforms out there, like this isn't art, this is trash, and you're being flooded with it. And then in response to that, like Rob Ness was like, who are you to tell somebody that their art is trash or that their art isn't art? And so he ran a stock photo of a 64-gallon garbage toter through Photomosh one time, and he put it on Super Rare. Ended up getting him kicked off of Super Rare, but also led to the whole concept, like the whole argument that like, creative freedom is a whole thing. Like you can't tell somebody that's literally like we're in blockchain because we want decentralization and because we want to be different than the traditional art market. So like for you to say that my art isn't art just because doesn't appeal to your taste, like who the hell are you to say so? Like this trash can is art now. Deal with it, kind of thing. And I just blew up into a whole like stance on creative freedom and being able to like do as we please in this space.
And on that, just to follow up, I asked this question. I tweeted about this because I was interested to hear what people's responses were. But we talk about decentralization a lot, right? And I'm curious to hear your perspective on it. Like, what is decentralization for you?
I think complete decentralization is a pipe dream, but like the more you can put control of people's content and information and data and their time and attention spent on the internet, the more you can put that back in the hands of those people, or at least the value that it generates gets back to those people, then the better it's going to be for everybody.
That's a really good take on it. What about you, Clyde?
No, I like that because there are a lot of idealistic perceptions of decentralization, of what it is, what it can be. And of course, there's a much larger history related to decentralization that never comes into that conversation, from the history of anarchist practice and theory to co-ops to all sorts of things. But the reality is this seems to be this idea that through code, people could bypass government and could avoid existing power structures. And as we're seeing from regulatory action and all sorts of things governments are doing, you can't just bypass the government. Certainly not just through code, at least in my opinion. And you have to actually take political action, and that's not going to happen. I don't see that happening with this scene in general. And beyond that, then you also have big brands flooding the space. You have, the people buying Bitcoin, the big banks are buying Bitcoin now, or people adjacent to the big banks. So increasingly institutions are going to hold Bitcoin. So at some point, where's your revolution? So I think what Bruce is saying, that in as much as on an everyday basis, we find ways for us to take power, to take control of what we're doing, and to continue to build tools and platforms so people can take their power. Something like NFT Hub, by helping educate people, by connecting things, that's really a powerful thing in its own way. So I actually appreciate that perspective, because it gets beyond the ideologies that have sort of a purist take on things, and really gets to, what can we do now and what can we do moving forward.
Absolutely. I actually have, I guess, one last question for you both, which is more around platforms. So I was thinking about this, like let's say in the social media kind of sphere, there's, I guess, two main platforms, Facebook and Twitter. There's obviously things coming up like TikTok and Snapchat and stuff. Do you think that's where the NFT space will go with platforms? Will there be like kind of, let's say a couple of main NFT platforms, or will there be many and many, many more? For both of you, I don't know, whoever wants to go first. Bruce, maybe you.
I think right now, like, we see a lot more people coming from the mainstream, like immediately going to Foundation, which they must have some expert marketing over there, because like I didn't give a damn about Foundation until 2 months ago when everybody was on Foundation. Like, I was aware of it, and it was like, yeah, there's already dozens of platforms. Like, I'm not gonna sign up for yet another one. But like, I get DMs from people I've never talked to, like, all the time on Twitter and Discord, like, hey, do you have a Foundation invite, or can you upvote me on Foundation? It's like, do you not know there's like 80,000 other platforms you could be publishing your NFTs on? Like, but I don't got time to tell them about it, all of them. So I just go upvote them. But I think there's going to continue to be platforms coming out. Like, I know DigiCall just launched a little bit ago, and like that got a bunch of attention for whatever reason. Like, why are you launching on mainnet at this point is a mystery to me. But like, there's probably a bunch of platforms out there that we don't even know about yet, like that have like their own niche or something. Like what's it called? Space Cowboys, I think, is a Binance Smart Chain NFT platform that's specifically geared towards sci-fi and cowboy type stuff. Like, I'm not really sure. It's weird, but like I stumble across these weird things all the time. But I think right now there's definitely major players, which is probably Foundation, Super Rare, and Async, and obviously OpenSea. But OpenSea is more of a generalized market than it is necessarily art. But I think we'll keep seeing more pop up. But I think at some point, like I don't like Facebook, but I go on there and because that's where the eyeballs are. So it's kind of inevitable that we'll see the same thing in NFTs. Like people aren't going to go to some new random NFT platform that like just got made if it's not by like somebody they know or it doesn't have something new and exciting going on.
What about you, Clyde? What do you think?
You know, there is a lot going on, and there's a lot more happening on other chains than you're necessarily going to hear about. Like on just through following the funding news, I'm running into projects that I'm not seeing people talk about on Cryptoart Twitter, and some of them are art related and some of them aren't. So I'm actually hopeful that we can have a really broad range of platforms and places for people to gather. On the other hand, people are talking about who's Facebook going to buy. That's been a big discussion recently.
I saw that as well.
Yeah, well, there were a couple of different ones. I ran into some different ones, and it struck me, and other people had thought this before me, is what happens when Instagram adds NFTs, and so I think something like that could be a big platform. But at this point, there's so much established activity. People are dealing with the Ethereum it's going to work out. The transaction fee issue is going to work out eventually. At the same time, it's giving space for other chains to grow. So I'm pretty hopeful about things not being locked down by a few big players.
Do you think Facebook will launch their NFT marketplace, or will they buy something else?
Well, that's the thing. They could either turn Instagram into a NFT platform, add that, or they could buy something. Like my other thought was they could buy Dapper Labs
Foundation.
and take over Flow blockchain. That
Sure.
would be that would be the play.
What do you think, Bruce?
I think it's kind of like a toss-up. Like there's a lot of us here that are idealists and like would very publicly boycott anything Facebook did in NFTs. But at the same time, like the mainstream is probably quicker to adopt something that they understand better or already utilize than like learning all the blockchain stuff and all the intricacies and why an ERC 721 is different than an 1155 and why the metadata storage is important. Like I think a lot of that is just overlooked right now, which is not good in the long term. But Facebook has the money to do it right, so like, if they do it, hopefully they do it properly.
Well, they've done such a good job with social networking. And I say that as sarcastically as possible because I won't even go there anymore. I don't understand why Twitter hasn't bought valuables yet.
Yeah, that actually surprises me a little bit.
That's kind of bizarre. But I think
that's true.
I don't know. I think Flow. If a big company is going to buy something, they're going to be looking at Dapper Labs because the NBA Top Shot's the big thing, and a lot of those folks. I've talked to people who have friends on there who don't know what NFTs are. They collect moments. They use credit cards. You know, there's a whole other discussion about what happens when you have NFTs without crypto, because you don't actually need crypto for NFTs. And the big brands are looking at Nifty Gateway and NBA Top Shot and going, hey, we can just use credit cards. And in fact, this Major League Baseball card, Topps is releasing Major League Baseball cards later this month on Wax blockchain, and that's credit card only. So,
and I guess that defeats the whole concept of decentralization, right? If you think about it, because it's credit cards, so essentially it's not on the chain, right?
Well, the NFTs are at Wax are on chain and like
yeah,
is on IPFS, but like they have credit card payments enabled. which I've never understood why they do credit card only for some of the drops. Because like I'd buy stuff, but I don't have a credit card. I'm bankless. Like I'm 100% crypto all the time. Like, I pay my rent in Bitcoin even.
Oh,
So like not having the option to use crypto for those drops is like I'm trying to buy these drops. Like I don't have fiat money. I don't mess with that nonsense. Like it's
so
fun to
they've
buy.
been doing that. They've been doing credit card only drops already.
Yeah, I think the William Shatner ones were credit card only,
Oh, okay.
and I want to say Bratz was another recent one that was credit card only.
That's interesting. I think I think the point of probably like corporates kind of looking into like platforms that are more accessible in a way. So like not having to go through the route of kind of crypto, but going through the route of like debit and credit cards is probably the easier way in, right? Rather than kind of having to mess with blockchains.
Yeah, it's definitely simpler.
I mean, you can still have the blockchain for the NFTs, right? So
Yeah.
as Bruce is saying, you can still have decentralization except for the payment piece. And, a lot of people want crypto to be money. So isn't it just a payments option at that point? I mean, that's what money is, a payment option, right? So it's weird. See that, and that's the kind of thing I look at when I talk about like when you look at the ideals of decentralization and you look at the reality of what's happening, there's so many ways it could be broken up. Cardano, the Cardano blockchain, people are just releasing NFTs there, but they don't have smart contracts. And I'm not even sure what exactly those NFTs are, but they're getting ready to do a fork and add smart contracts, but there's a lot of weird things that could happen, and hopefully we can hold on to the blockchain, NFTs on blockchains, the royalty part can be worked out, and the ability to sell things on places like OpenSea. Those are the kind of things really worth fighting for. But how much of that will be out of our hands and how much will be a hyper corporate, highly branded space versus spaces where the things we're trying to do now can keep happening.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Cool. Well, I think I think it was a great chat. Great to speak to you both. You're welcome back anytime to chat about anything at all. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you,
Bruce. I have your podcast, so I'm gonna comment on this live with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes of that.
Yeah. So that should take you to all the episodes that are live right now. I did 10 last year, and then I just started season 2 the other day. So
nice.
Well, hopefully, I'm gonna try and do it every week or every 2 weeks, maybe. It's got too many things going on.
Cool. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye.